Hello students, welcome back to the first chapter of class 8, that is the best Christmas present in the world. I know you have been waiting for this excited chapter. Let us see. In the picture, we can see Mr. Michael Merpergo, who is the writer of the story. He has bought, let us recap also of the story. He has bought an old roll top desk which was seen in a junk shop. He brought the old roll top decks and he started repairing it. While repairing, he also noticed that the whole desk has been burnt from one side, and there were a lot of water damage and fire damage too. So when he was opening up all the drawers, there was one drawer which was tightly packed, and he used a lot of brute force to open it. And when it opened, he found a black tin box which was sellotaped, and on that tin box it was written in a shaky handwriting, Jim's last letter. So when he opened the tin box, he found a letter, and he was saying that it is very bad of me that I am opening someone else's letter, but he was so curious. His curiosity has got better of his scruples, and that's the reason he has opened up. And when he opened the letter was written to Mrs. Jim McPherson. Mrs. Jim McPherson is the lady who received the letter, and this was written by Jim McPherson, the husband of the woman who was in army. So he took out the letter, and it was written on December 26th, 1914. So let us go forward and let's read the letter. Dearest Connie, I write to you in a much happier frame of mind because something wonderful has just happened that I must tell you. So, Connie is who? Connie is the wife of Jim McPherson. That is Connie McPherson. Jim McPherson was working in the army. He was in the British Army, and he is writing a letter to his wife on the after Christmas. Okay, so let's see what he has written in the letter. We will understand. So Jim McPherson is saying that I am writing this letter in a very happy mind. He is very happy because something wonderful has happened. Now students, what wonderful can happen at a wartime? In a battleground, what wonderful can happen? Nothing wonderful can happen at a battleground. But Jim McPherson is telling that something wonderful has happened in his battleground. Let us say. He is saying that something wonderful has happened and that I should tell you. He is saying, we were all standing in our trenches yesterday morning. Do you know what are trenches? In wartime, they dig the ground so that this party cannot cross the boundary and that other party cannot cross the boundary. So there is a big gap which is dug into the ground. They are called trenches. We were all standing in our trenches yesterday morning, Christmas morning. It was crisp and quite all about, as beautiful a morning as I have ever seen, as cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be. So Jim McPherson is saying that it was Christmas morning and they were standing in their trenches. It was crisp and quiet. The morning was as beautiful a morning as I have ever seen. See this line, as beautiful a morning as I have ever seen. This is a figure of speech. Can you guess what kind of figure of speech this and as cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be? These two phrases are which figure of speech? If you have guessed it is simile, then you are absolutely right. Let's read further. I should like to be able to tell you that we began it. So Jim McPherson, the husband, is writing in the letter. He is saying that I should be proudly telling you that they began it. What did they begin? Let's see. But the truth, I'm ashamed to say, is that Fritz began it. But he's saying that actually the truth is that the Fritz began it. Now the Fritz are the German soldiers. Fritz is what? The German soldiers. And Tommy is the British soldiers. Okay. These are the soldiers, common name given. So Fritz are German soldiers and Tommy are the British soldiers. So Jim McPherson is in the Tommy, that is British soldiers, and Fritz are the German soldiers. So Jim is telling that actually the Freds began it. First, someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. So, do you know what is the meaning of white flag during a wartime? White flag means to showing that we surrender or we want to do peace with you. We want to resolve this matter and have peace. We don't want to fight. So someone from the Freds was waving a white flag. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land. Happy Christmas, Tommy! Happy Christmas! So what happened, that someone from the Freds, they were shouting and saying, Happy Christmas, Tommy, Happy Christmas. When we had got over the surprise, some of us shouted back, Same to you, Freds, same to you. So the Tommies, I mean the English soldiers, they were totally surprised to see the white flag as well as the greetings of Christmas. So when the surprise was over, they also replied back, Same to you, Freds. I thought that would be that. We all did, but then suddenly one of them was up in his grey coat and waving a white flag. So they were thinking that this might be something else. So they were thinking that it might be a trap. But when it was all over, then they saw someone in grey greatcoat and waving a white flag. So here's another figure of speech, grey greatcoat. It's an alliteration, as you might have guessed. And waving a white flag. See, W is being repeated, waving a white flag. It's also an alliteration. So someone was waving a white flag from the grey greatcoats, that is the Freds. So someone shouted, Don't shoot, lads! That don't shoot, boys. And no one did. Then there was another Freds up on the parapet and another, Keep your heads down. I told men it's a trick, but it wasn't. So what happened, that the Freds started to come near the English soldiers. So Jim McPherson, who was the head of the English soldiers, was telling that it's a trick, but actually it wasn't. One of the Germans was waving a bottle above his head. It is Christmas Day, Tommy. We have schnapps. We have sausage. We meet you, yes. So what happened here, that one of the German soldiers, he was having a bottle of alcohol, drink made from grain. It's actually alcoholic drinks. He was telling that we have schnapps, we have sausage. It is a meat kind of thing, which if you have seen hot dog, the meat which is put in a hot dog is called sausage. So he's saying that we have snaps, we have sausage, we will want to meet you, we want to celebrate with you. Do you agree? By this time there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land, and not a riffle between them. So what was happening? By this time, dozens of German soldiers were walking across the no man's land. See, no man's land is that area between the two boundaries where nobody should go, because that area does not belong to any country, and if anyone goes into it, he will be shot dead. So they were coming towards the English soldiers. Little Private Morris was the first up. Come on, boys, what are we waiting for? So one of the soldiers in the English army, he stood up and said that, come on, boys, what are we waiting for? And then there was no stopping them. I was the officer. I should have stopped them there and then, I suppose. But the truth is that it never even occurred to me I should. So Jim McPherson, the writer of the letter, was telling that I was the officer. I should have stopped my army to go ahead. But the truth is that not even a single person came in his heart that he should stop his army to go and meet the Germans. All along their line and ours, I could see men walking slowly towards one another, grey coats, khaki coats meeting in the middle. So who were wearing the grey coats? The German, and the khaki coats were worn by the English army. So all along the line in the no man's land, everyone was meeting each other, and I was one of them. I was part of this. In the middle of the war, we were making peace. See, this is a very beautiful line. Jim McPherson is telling that in the middle of the war, we were making peace. See, it was a war time and it was Christmas Day, but they did not fight. In fact, they were having love with them. They were making peace with each other. They were not fighting. What a beautiful scene it must be. You cannot imagine, dearest Connie, my feelings as I looked into the eyes of the Fritz officer who approached me, hand outstretched. Hanswolf, he said, gripping my hand warmly and holding it. So, see, the way I am excited reading it, even Jim McPherson, while writing, he is saying that you cannot imagine, my dear Connie, my feelings. He is saying that he cannot express his feelings, how happy he was to make peace with the German army. He was saying that I looked into the eyes of the Fritz officer who was stretching his hands and greeting me, and he was telling his name, Hanswolf. The German officer's name was Hanswolf, and he held his hand warmly and holding it and is saying that I am from Dusseldorf. I play the cello in the orchestra. Happy Christmas. So Hanswolf, one of the German officer, he is saying that he was from Dusseldorf and he used to play cello. Cello is a musical instrument which is like violin, and he is wishing Christmas. So see, Hanswolf is not a professional soldier. He is also a cello player in the orchestra, and he has come to join the army. See, during the First World War, lot of civilians, lot of common people has joined the army to fight for the nation. Then Jim McPherson is replying and giving his own introduction. He's saying, I am Captain Jim McPherson and a happy Christmas to you too. I'm a school teacher from Dorset in the west of England. So even Jim McPherson is a school teacher who teaches in Dorset. It is in the west of England. So, Dorset, he smiled. I know this place. I know it very well. So, Hanswolf is saying that, oh, Dorset, I know this place. I know it very well. We shared my rum ration and his excellent sausage. So, Jim McPherson is saying that we were sharing the rum ration, In army, they have fixed amount of food for everyone. That is called ration. In Hindi, we call ration. But it is like in the time of COVID-19, every person who is the migrant workers from this in the cities they are working, they are also getting a fixed ration for eating. So during the army time also they get fixed ration. So that is, he's talking about the rum ration. Rum means alcohol. So these soldiers, they get fixed amount of alcohol to drink. So Jim McPherson is telling that we were sharing the rum, that is alcohol, and we were eating the Germans' sausage, that meat. And we talked, Connie, how we talked. So he's expressing his happiness that we talked a lot, we kept talking. He spoke almost perfect English, but it turned out that he had never set foot in Dorset, never ever been to England. So Hanswolf was talking very good English, but he never even came to England. He had learned all he knew of England from school and from reading books in English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy. His favorite book, Far from the Madding Crowd. So out there in no man's land, we talked of Bathsheba and Gabriel Oak and Sergeant Troy and Dorset. So Jim McPherson is telling that he came to know that he studied very good English in his school and his favorite book was this and that. They were talking about lots of characters of the books. They have a lot of fun. He had a wife and one son born just 6 months ago. So Hanswolf was having a wife and one son born just 6 months ago. As I looked about me, there was huddles of khaki and grey everywhere, all over no man's land, smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, eating. So in the no man's land, it was full of people from both the parties, the Freds as well as the Tommies, the English soldiers and the German soldiers. What they were doing? They were smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, eating. Hanswolf and I shared what was left of your wonderful Christmas cake, Connie. So Connie McPherson, the wife of Jim, had sent a Christmas cake which Hanswolf and Jim was sharing. He thought the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. So marzipan is a layer made on the cake. You can see in the meaning, a sweet covering on cake made from sugar, eggs and almonds. So Hanswolf is saying that this is the best marzipan he had ever eaten. We agreed about everything and he was my enemy. See, another beautiful line which I really like is that we agreed everything. See, a friend can agree between each other, but enemies do not agree. But Jim is saying that we agreed about everything and he was my enemy. There never was a Christmas party like it, Connie. Then someone, I don't know who, brought out a football. Great coats were dumped in piles to make goalposts, and the next thing we knew, it was Tommy against Fritz out in the middle of no man's land. So it was a very exciting scene that all the soldiers of two different countries, they were meeting, laughing, playing, smoking, and then someone brought a football and they all removed their coats, and by the help of the coats they started making goalposts. Like in the mohallas and gullies, lots of children, they make a goal post of some other things like stones or brick. So they started making goal post of their coats, and the next moment they took out their football and started playing football in the middle of no man's land. Hans Wolf and I looked on and cheered, clapping our hands and stamping our feet to keep out the cold as much as anything. There was a moment when I noticed our breaths mingling in the air between us. He saw it too and smiled. Jim McPherson, he said after a while, I think this is how we should resolve this war. So what happened, they both were Hans Wolf and Jim, they both were cheering the team and clapping, stamping their feet, and it was quite cold. And at a moment they both were talking and laughing and enjoying, and then Hans Wolf was expressing his thoughts. He was telling Jim, I think this is the best way we should solve the war. See, always a war is only solved by fighting, but what is Hans Wolf saying? That we should solve a war by playing football, a football match. No one dies in a football match. No children are orphaned. No wives become widows. This is one of the most emotional lines of the chapter, I find. What is Hans Wolf saying? That we should solve all the problems, all the war, by playing a football match, because in a football match no soldier dies, no children becomes orphan means a boy who does not have father or mother, they are called orphans. And no wives become widows, means no soldier will die, so obviously their wives will not become without husbands. So Jim is telling that I would prefer cricket, I told him. Then we Tommies could be sure of winning probably. See how funny even Jim is that, because see, the England had invented the game of cricket. I think you remember that in class 7 you have studied that the story of cricket, that cricket was invented in England. So Jim McPherson was from England and he said that no, I would prefer playing cricket, because we are sure that we would have won the cricket and the war also. We laughed at that and together we watched the game. Sad to say, Connie, Fritz won 2-1. So you can see in the picture that the Tommies and the Fritz, they are in between the no man's land. I told you no man's land is the area between both the boundaries, and they are cheering and they are playing, and how excitedly they are playing. The yellow dresses are of the Germans and the green ones are the Tommies, that is England soldiers. Fritz won. See, they were thinking to win, but actually the Germans won 2-1. But as Hans Wolf generously said, our goal was wider than theirs, so it wasn't quite fair. So Hans Wolf is accepting that our goal was wider than theirs, so it wasn't a quite fair. So in the English army, their goal was much bigger. That is the reason that Germans were easily able to goal into them. Okay. The time came, and all too soon, when the game was finished, the schnapps and the rum and the sausage had long since run out. We knew it was all over. I wished Hans well, and I told him I hoped he would see his family again soon, that the fighting would end and we could all go home. So when all the schnapps, that is rum, sausage, everything was finished, the game was finished, they both had enjoyed a lot. Jim told Hans that once we will finish this war, we will all go back home and we can meet our wife and children back again. So students, I know the chapter is quite lengthy, but I'm telling you, this is one of the most emotional chapters you will ever read. So we will continue in the next, that is the third part of the video. Till the time, I hope you studied this much and understand and know the emotional lines and the figures of speech which we have discussed in the chapter, and we will continue in the next video. Goodbye.